The combine is upon us. Who are the players that we need to watch? What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking Jets with Tigo. My name is Tigo, and the combine kicks off today, and we're going to talk about 5 players at 4 different positions that we should all be very, very closely monitoring, because my expectation is that there is going to be a very high level of interest from the New York Jets on any one of these 5 players at their respective positions. We're going to go over wide receivers, offensive tackles, interior offensive linemen, and interior defensive linemen. And we're going to talk about all of these guys, ranging from first-round talents to day 3 picks and everything in between. Let's not waste any time. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button. Let's hop right into it. At wide receiver, we should, of course, be watching the top 3 guys. Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, Malik Nabers, and that's just because those guys are studs. You should watch them and enjoy it because those guys are masters at their craft. And there is a realistic possibility that one of Malik Nabers or Rome Odunze is available at 10. But neither one of those guys is going to be on my list because I don't think the Jets are going to pick at 10. I think they're going to do everything in their power to trade back from 10. You need to walk away with a second-round pick in this draft. Like, there is no option. You need a second-round pick. The draft is stocked to the brim with second-round talent. That's where you're going to get your value, and the best asset and the best way that the New York Jets can get a second-round pick is with that number 10 pick, so go and get yourself a second-round pick. That being said, here are 5 wide receivers that I think the New York Jets, and specifically we should all be watching to see how they test, to see, one, their RAS scores, right? We got to remember how much Joe Douglas loves his athletes, and high RAS scores probably means they're probably on the New York Jets watch list for players, and those 5 guys are Keon Coleman, Malik Washington, Javon Baker, Taj Washington, and Luke McCaffrey. All wide receivers with a ton of interest that at least I have in all of these guys. I would throw in a little bit of a curveball there in Xavier Leggett out of South Carolina, another guy that seems like he might test out and be a freak. But either one of those guys kind of fill a athletic profile of what the Jets might want if they want to upgrade at the slot over, Xavier Gibson. But they also, some of these guys fill that like wide receiver 2 spot. I'm really interested to see specifically how Keon Coleman grades out and like what his numbers look like, because as a big body, go get it type of X receiver, we don't have that right now, and we could take a player like that to push Allen Lazard down the depth chart, but also a guy like Javon Baker or Luke McCaffrey who can kind of maybe be do-it-all kind of wide receivers, kind of like what we get from Garrett Wilson, but obviously not at that high of a level. And so you got that, and then Taj Washington and Malik Washington both being just straight up, they're just slot guys who are incredibly good. If you're interested in hearing more about Taj Washington, go and watch the most recent episode of the Draft Dodgers podcast. I do a big segment on Taj Washington and how much I love that kid. Let's move on to what everybody's favorite position to talk about, and I think the position that everyone's going to be the most upset about when it comes to the draft, and that's offensive tackle. I don't think the New York Jets are really going to be looking at offensive tackle at 10. There's a bunch of things for that, but I think that they're going to be looking for maybe an offensive tackle later in the draft. And so I've picked a couple of players that I think that we should keep an eye on. Go watch Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu and Talise Fuaga. Those guys are studs, and they're probably all going to be on the New York Jets board. But if you're trying to find some later round picks, late first round picks, second, third, fourth, fifth round picks to keep an eye on and to maybe start studying up on to see what you think about these guys, here are some 5 names. Amarius Mims, the offensive tackle out of Georgia. If the New York Jets trade back from 10, Amarius Mims, I think, is at play. And if the New York Jets decide to take a tackle at 10, I think Amarius Mims might be at play as well. The guy is an insane athlete, and we know how much Joe Douglas values athleticism, specifically at tackle. The only player that the New York Jets didn't draft that had a higher than a 9.0 athletic RAS score, I believe, is Max Mitchell, and he was like an 8.8. So it was like still very, very close. But we know how much Joe Douglas loves his athletes, and this is why I'm also putting on that first round list Tyler Guyton, another guy who might grade out as an incredible athlete. And so you got to keep an eye on both of those guys, because while some evaluators and some people might have them lower down on the board, the New York Jets and their drafting philosophy might have them higher on the board because of the athleticism and their belief that, you know what, you can't teach athleticism, but you can teach technique, which I kind of tend to agree with. A couple of other guys to keep an eye on: second round, third round, fourth round picks. Jordan Morgan and Patrick Paul both seem like they're going to be second round picks when it comes to offensive tackles. So if the New York Jets can figure out a way to get a second round pick, and then they decide that they want to use that second round pick on a tackle with some upside, both of those guys are exactly that, some tackles with some upsides that can come in there. And then if you're looking for like a later pick, Matt Goncalves, the offensive tackle out of Pittsburgh, is a guy that I would keep an eye on as well, especially if he grades out better than what I think people are anticipating, which might happen with the training regimen that he's going into. Moving into the position that I think we should watch every single player, because I think we're going to take a bunch of these guys, is interior offensive linemen. This is why I think the New York Jets need to walk away with a second round pick, is because the interior offensive lineman that you're going to be able to get in the second round is going to be this. If you need a guard, if you need a center, if you need an interior offensive lineman, this is the draft to need it, because you're going to walk away with a guy. I think number one, of course, we all should be watching Jackson Powers Johnson, the center out of Oregon, because if the Jets trade out of 10, JPJ immediately comes into play for the New York Jets. He is a stud. My grade evaluation puts him really, really close to the grade evaluations that I had for guys like Creed Humphrey, who I had as a first round pick. The fact that he slipped blew my mind, but also guys like Tyler Linderbaum and stuff like that. I think that JPJ is a stud and could definitely benefit the New York Jets. But also, if you can get into the second round, guys like Zinter, Cooper Beebe, Christian Haynes, Christian Mahogany, Zach Frazier are all guys that you're going to be able to get in the second, the third, and the fourth round that I think can immediately come in and be day one starters at left guard, center, or right guard, wherever it is that you decide to put them. So there is a ton of flexibility there. And with the flexibility that obviously Joe Douglas made sure to mention multiple times of guys like Elijah Vera Tucker and Joe Tippmann being able to play anywhere on the offensive line, it really frees up this ideology or this belief, you know what? We don't have to look for a left tackle or a right tackle or a right guard or a center or a left guard. We can just go find players that play on the offensive line and know that we're going to be able to put a really solid unit in front of Aaron Rodgers. And then one of my biggest positions that I think that like is one of the bigger positions of need for the New York Jets is interior defensive linemen. And I've put 5 guys starting with second round talent all the way down to fifth round talents. The New York Jets need to take an interior defensive lineman. This is why I'm so desperately in need or wanting a second-round pick, is so that we can take an interior defensive lineman. And this class is chock full of them. With the second-round guys, Chris Jenkins and T'Vondre Sweat are 2 guys that are going to grade insanely well athletically. You should not be able to be as big as Chris Jenkins is, or even bigger in T'Vondre Sweat, and move the way that they do. And they are 2 guys that are both going to be in position to be second-round picks, and they are immediate day one upgrades to anything that we've had on the interior defensive line, not named Quinnen Williams, in years. And I mean that. I think that both of these guys can be better than Sheldon Rankins, who played well for us, Quentin Jefferson, who I expect us to bring back, but I love Chris Jenkins and T'Vondre Sweat. And the last time we had a Chris Jenkins on the New York Jets, it worked out incredibly well. So run it back. I'm all about legacy picks. And now when we're looking at day 2 picks, like third round picks, and fourth round picks, Mekhi Wingo, Michael Hall, and Leonard Taylor are all guys to keep an eye on. Coming into this draft, all 3 of these guys had exceptionally high draft grades, right? Coming into the season. Leonard Taylor, at the beginning of the season, I had a first-round grade on him. Michael Hall Jr., some people have a first-round grade on him as like right now, and I don't, but I see what they're talking about. And as well with Mekhi Wingo, they're all guys with really, really interesting athletic profiles that can definitely have, they also have technical skills to back it up, and it's at a position of need for the New York Jets. So again, the combine is chock full of players, and it is a fun time to watch. But when you're specifically trying to find targets for the New York Jets, remember 3 things. 1, what positions do we need? 2, what draft picks do we actually have? And 3, what is their ultimate RAS score? At the end, what is their relative athletic score? Because Joe Douglas values that metric very, very highly. So let me know, who are you most excited to see at the combine? Let me know in the comment section below. Hey, don't forget to hit the like button. It tells YouTube that we're making good videos here or we're not making good videos and all that stuff. And obviously make sure to hit the subscribe button to support the channel. And last but not least, go Jets.